Welcome back to Dark Clues, where real crimes meet real mystery. Tonight, we go back to a snowy Christmas Eve in 1945, where a family home became a raging inferno. 5 children vanished within the smoke, leaving behind no bodies, no bones, and a suspicion that they were never dead. This is the baffling case of the Sodder children disappearance. Let's get into it. On Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia, a thick blanket of snow covered the ground. Inside the Sodder family home, the atmosphere was festive. George and Jenny Sodder, Italian immigrants, had built a good life for themselves and their 10 children. That night, 9 of their children were home. The eldest, 23-year-old John, and 17-year-old Joe, were away serving in the military. The younger children, excited about their new Christmas toys, begged to stay up late. Their mother, Jenny, agreed, on the condition that the 2 oldest boys at home, 14-year-old Maurice and 9-year-old Louis, remembered to feed the cows and close the chicken coop before bed. She then took the youngest child, 2-year-old Sylvia, upstairs and went to sleep. Around 12:30 a.m., the phone rang. Jenny woke up and answered it. The woman on the other end asked for a name Jenny didn't recognize. Jenny told her she had the wrong number and heard strange laughter in the background before the caller hung up. On her way back to bed, Jenny noticed something odd. The lights were still on, and the front door was unlocked. She assumed the kids were still awake, so she turned off the lights, locked the door, and went back to sleep. Just an hour later, she was jolted awake again, this time by the smell of smoke. The house was on fire. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children, John Jr., George Jr., Mary, and Sylvia, managed to escape the inferno. But 5 children were still trapped inside. 14-year-old Morris, 12-year-old Martha, 9-year-old Louis, 8-year-old Jenny, and 5-year-old Betty. Their bedrooms were in the attic. Panic set in. George frantically tried to get back inside to save them. He broke a window, cutting his arm, but the flames were too intense. He then ran to find his ladder, which was always kept propped against the side of the house, but it was gone. It was later found tossed in an embankment about 75 feet away. His next idea was to drive one of his 2 coal trucks up to the house and climb on top of it to reach the attic window. But neither of the trucks, which had been working perfectly the day before, would start. Desperate, the family tried to get water from a rain barrel, but it was frozen solid. The oldest daughter, Marion, ran to a neighbor's house to call the fire department. The operator didn't answer. Another neighbor tried calling from a nearby tavern, but again, no response from the central telephone operator. Finally, after driving into town, someone managed to alert the fire chief, F.J. Morris, in person. Despite the fire department being only 2.5 miles away, help didn't arrive until 8 a.m. the next morning, a full 7 hours after the fire started. By then, the Sodder family home had been reduced to a smoldering pile of ash and rubble in the basement. The 5 children were gone. The fire chief told the grieving parents that the blaze was so hot it must have completely cremated their bodies. The official cause of death for all 5 children was listed as fire or suffocation, and death certificates were issued just 5 days later. The official cause of the fire was deemed to be faulty wiring, but for George and Jenny Sodder, this explanation never made sense. Jenny, who had worked in a crematorium, knew that human bones don't just vanish in a house fire. Even at extremely high temperatures for a prolonged period, skeletal remains are almost always left behind. The family began to question everything about that night. Why did the phone ring with a strange wrong number call just before the fire? Why were the lights left on and the door unlocked? Where did their ladder go? Why wouldn't the truck start? Most importantly, where were the remains of their children? The Sodder's own investigation began to uncover a series of strange and disturbing events leading up to the fire. A few months prior, a stranger had come to their house looking for work. He pointed to the back of the house and warned George that his fuse boxes were a fire hazard. George, who had just had the house rewired and inspected, found this odd. Around the same time, another man tried to sell the family life insurance. When George declined, the man became angry and said, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed." He also made a remark about George's outspoken criticism of Benito Mussolini, which was not popular in their heavily Italian-American community. Even more troubling was a sighting by a local bus driver. After the fire, She told the Sodders she had seen the children peering out from a car that passed her as she drove her route on Christmas morning. Another woman, who was running a tourist stop between Fayetteville and Charleston, claimed she served the children breakfast on Christmas morning and saw them in a car with Florida license plates. Driven by these suspicions, the Sodders refused to believe their children were dead. They hired a private investigator named C.C. Tinsley. Tinsley discovered a shocking detail. The fire chief F.J. Morris had supposedly found a human heart in the ashes. He had secretly buried it in a metal box. When confronted, Morris eventually led George to the spot. They dug up the box, but when they took the contents to a local funeral director for examination, it was determined to be fresh beef liver, untouched by the fire. The discovery suggested that Maurice might have been trying to plant evidence to convince the Sodders their children were dead, perhaps to stop their investigation. Years passed and the Sodders never gave up hope. In 1949, they persuaded a pathologist from Washington, D.C. to conduct a formal excavation of the site. The search yielded a few small objects, some coins, a dictionary, and several small bone fragments that were identified as human vertebrae. However, the report stated the bones all came from one person, and their age was estimated to be between 16 and 22. None of the missing Sodder children were in that age range. Also, the bones showed no signs of being exposed to fire. It was later theorized that George might have brought fill dirt to the site to create a memorial garden for his children. The bones could have been in that dirt. The mystery only deepened. The Sodders' belief that their children were kidnapped grew stronger. They wondered if it was retaliation for George's anti-Mussolini sentiments, or perhaps connected to the local mafia. They put up a large billboard along Route 16 with pictures of their 5 missing children and a reward for information. Then, in 1968, more than 2 decades after the fire, Jenny Sodder received a letter in the mail. It was postmarked from Central City, Kentucky, and had no return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man in his mid-20s. On the back of the photo was a cryptic, handwritten note, "Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie, little boys." A 90132 or 35, the man in the picture bore a striking resemblance to their son Louis, who would have been in his late 20s. He had the same dark curly hair, dark eyes, and distinctive nose shape. The Sodders were convinced it was him. They hired another private detective to go to Kentucky, but the detective took their money and was never heard from again. The family added the updated photo of Louis to their billboard, but no further leads ever came from it. The identity of the sender and the man in the photo remains a mystery to this day. George Sodder passed away in 1969, never knowing what happened to his children. Jenny continued her search, wearing black for the rest of her life as a sign of mourning. She passed away in 1989, after her death. The remaining Sodder children and grandchildren took down the weathered billboard that had stood for almost 40 years. They continued to believe their siblings had been kidnapped and had survived the fire, but the trail had long gone cold. So what really happened on that Christmas Eve in 1945? Is it a tragic accident, a perfect storm of unfortunate circumstances, or was it something far more sinister? The theory of a tragic fire is supported by the official findings. Faulty wiring, a common problem at the time, could have easily started the blaze. The delayed response from the fire department, while incompetent, might not have been malicious. And the lack of remains could be explained by the intense heat of a lumber fire, combined with the collapse of the house into the basement, where the contents continued to smolder for hours. But the kidnapping theory is bolstered by too many strange coincidences to ignore. The threats against George, the missing ladder, the disabled trucks, the strange phone call, and the eyewitness sightings all point toward a planned abduction. The beef liver planted by the fire chief suggests a cover-up. Could someone have set the fire as a diversion to kidnap the children? Was it the mafia? Was it personal revenge? Or something else entirely? A third theory even suggests that the oldest brother, Joe, who was in the army, somehow orchestrated it, though his motive is unclear. The cryptic note on the back of the Louis photograph has been analyzed countless times, but its meaning remains elusive. A 90132 looks like it could be a postal code or even a military ID number, but nothing has ever been definitively traced. To this day, the disappearance of the Sodder children is one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. A family's worst nightmare played out on what should have been the happiest night of the year. 5 young lives seemingly vanished into smoke and thin air, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a family's undying hope. The truth of what happened in Fayetteville that night may be lost to time. The story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are the ones that happen in real life. Thank you for watching. If you found this case as fascinating as I did, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now, till next time, stay sharp, stay safe, and keep digging for the truth. This is Dark Clues, signing off.